So in case you missed part of it, let's go over this, then we're going to look at the patch notes, all right? So in general, this Campfire was way better than I thought it was going to be. I thought there was going to be way less content, and I thought the content was going to be worse. And that's supposed to be a compliment. It's not supposed to be me insulting Blizzard, but I'm more excited for Diablo's future now because I don't know whether it was last Epoch's big changes or Path of Exile's Giga Chad League that they just had, but Diablo 4 seems to be they seem to be trying now. Not to say they weren't trying before, but anyway, okay, whatever. What happened? So they said future PTR is going to be better for testing. Nice. We spent all of our time looking for the gear. We couldn't even test anything. Improved access to the infernal hordes. You can get them from Helltides and Nightmare Dungeons. The compasses drop naturally. You can craft them at the Occultist. We already knew this. The waves are going to be way better. The bosses were way too tanky. They got nerfed. The difficulty goes up properly. More mini events, more spawn rates. They reduced the timer to 60 seconds, and your pets are going to pick up the material. Should be way more chaotic and honestly way more fun. You're going to get more, I guess it's pronounced ether, but there's an A. It's weird. I guess it's ether. The bosses now drop a reward. They used to drop nothing. That felt terrible. The chests are cheaper, they give you more rewards, and they scale better. So they pulled literally every lever. They're giving you more of the material. It costs less to open the chest. The chests have more rewards, and they scale. So we're going to get some like mega loot explosions maybe in like the highest tiers. They're bringing back the reputation system from Season 4, which people liked from the Helltide. And one of the questions that they asked in the Q&A was, can you do it with multiple characters? And the answer is yes, which means you can get multiple resplendent sparks for playing your alts, which guarantees you eventually an uber unique. You can get the reputation much easier rather than just Helltide. The XP, this is the most interesting thing that they said, but they didn't explain this at all. The XP that you gain in the season goes up as you raise your reputation. I'm very interested to understand how this works. What is the increase? Is it a separate multiplier? Because I really care about leveling and leveling fast. So this is, I want to know what this is. We'll figure it out eventually. And then in the rewards, you're going to get uniques, a ton of crafting mats, and at the end, you'll get that resplendent spark to craft your uber uniques. They extended the seasonal quest line from all the way to the beginning. Some people will care about that, the people that like lore and quests, so there you go. They have new leveling dungeons. So we used to level up, the fastest way was in the dopamine tunnels. It was by far the best way to level, but a lot of people didn't like it because all you were doing was half of a dungeon, and that's it. So a lot of people find that boring, understandably. But this might be the new XP meta, and they emphasize that there's very good loot in these new leveling dungeons. So, and the new leveling dungeons are kind of like mini versions of the Infernal Hordes. So how good this is, we're going to have to see, but maybe this is going to be better than Helltide. But then at the same time, then they buffed Helltide. The chests are cheaper in World Tier 1 and 2, and you can get all of your whispers in a single zone. So Helltide is the best, and they buffed it, but now they have these new leveling dungeons, which are supposed to compete with it. I've never seen them, so there's no way I will know which one is better. Profane Mind Cages are back. These raise the monster levels by 10, and it stacks up to 3. So now you can fight monsters 30 levels higher than you. This is one of the only changes that they're making in the game that adds difficulty. Almost everywhere else, they're making the game easier, which we'll talk about later. The legendary drop rates are now buffed at 100. It's going to be way easier to hit level 100, so when you reach level 100, you're going to get better loot. So that's a nice incentive for hitting max level. Enchanting no longer costs Angel's Breath. This is a surprising change to me. I thought they would just lower the cost rather than removing it, but that's the way that they decided to go with it. They lowered the crowd control, and you can now potion while crowd controlled. This actually killed me last time. World bosses have resilience, thank God, because they weren't even a fight before. The pit bosses, they let's start with this one last. 3 stacks now apply for the shadow dudes, and when you get hit 3 times, it's now the previous level of damage. This seems like a good change. It rewards you for playing well, for playing skillfully. I like this. They removed a lot of the mechanics that just instantly one-shot you. I've got no problem with that. This seems like a colossal nerf. 66% reduced damage. I mean, that's so significant. So now, before where this was like the main challenge, it's hard to imagine where the challenge is going to come from at all, especially with all the other buffs before. So I think like this patch is a significant improvement to Diablo 4 as a whole, but the thing that they need to start focusing on now that they're improving the base game is you have to add some stuff in the end game that is truly challenging. It's very hard to find a single moment anywhere in the game that is going to be challenging with what we know so far. Group play now gets 100% of the rewards in the pit. That's fine. We just need an SSF mode. I'm sad we don't have it already. Endgame bosses can be resummoned. Beast in the Ice is easier to summon and walk to. Varshan only requires 1 material. So this is interesting. The endgame bosses were dropping tons of yellows. So one of the first pieces of feedback that I gave Blizzard was, stop giving us yellows and just give us gold. They said, we don't want to do that because we have plans for the yellows, and we're going to keep the yellows in the game for our future plans. Now, they removed the yellows and replaced it with gold, and so this specific question was asked in the Q&A, what's the plan for yellows? And they said, nothing to announce at this time. So now I'm wondering if blues and yellows are ever going to have a place in the game other than when you're like level 10. So I don't know. The tormented bosses have buffed loot. The XP from monsters is now capped at 30, which this is a buff to you leveling up. It used to be capped lower. Now it's capped at 30, and you apply the multiplier to it, and you're getting a new multiplier, I guess, from the new progression system. So this just means you're going to level up much faster if you can farm harder content. They made some bug fixes. They buffed Necro Shielding Storm, which was already great. They buffed Barb, Dust Devil, and Earthquake. It was already great. They're addressing Barbs being too strong. They're changing how much damage your core stats get. Barb is the same. Rogue got a little bit better. Sorcerer, Druid, and Necro are getting significantly better. This is a big buff. The key passes for the Barb have been lowered to bring them more in line with the other classes, and they're going to buff the other class mechanics coming up. For Barbs, Hoda is getting stronger, and Upheaval's going to get way better because they updated some of the uniques. Sorcerers are getting colossal buffs. Their uniques are way better. They're getting just 20% more damage just for nothing. Their defensive buffs are going way up. And the Paragon is getting increased, or getting buffed from increasing the caps. Druid is getting a lot of quality of life and damage. Cataclysm's now going to consistently hit the enemies. People hated that. Perfect Storm, Seismic Shift is buffed. Paragon buffs and uniques are being shifted around so you can wear more of them to make more builds. Rogues didn't get that many changes. Flurry is buffed and some other things are buffed. Not too many. They're buffing Blood Necro and Lucky Hit across the board. Uniques. So this was probably the most exciting part of the entire stream. They're finally doing what I've been crying about since the alpha. We keep having uniques that say, Fireball throws another fireball, or 10% attack speed, or 20% damage, or all the memes for the damage on Tuesdays. Now they're making dramatic changes to all of the uniques in the game, and they're breaking a ton of the rules that they previously had to make them quite crazy. So we'll have to go through the patch notes and look at all of them. But for example, Fists of Fate gives you 50% lucky hit chance. Grandfather now just gives you 300% increased damage. they're changing the way that like passives interact and the class mechanics interact. It's actually truly exciting for once. Like from a theory crafting perspective and a building perspective, this is an area historically where games like Last Epoch and PoE have killed Diablo for. Now that they're opening up everything and being way more brave, it may actually be truly fun to make these crazy builds in Diablo 4, especially in the future if they can add more challenging content to test your builds within. Then we got to the Q&A section. They asked about Infernal Horde group play. Everyone's going to get their own rewards. The leader's not going to choose your rewards for you. There are going to be a lot of expansion updates. There's going to be some huge changes coming. I know some of them secretly that I cannot share. It's Blizzard's thing to announce. Some of them are quite significant. You're going to like them a lot. I'm almost certain about it. They're going to have new boons and banes for the mechanic, but not in Season 5. This is a little bit disappointing. I thought this was one of the biggest problems with the current system. At least they acknowledged it's a problem, and they are going to change it. I guess they just ran out of time. So it is what it is. They're going to change the Paragon system. They said stay tuned. The progression within the new reputation system is character specific, so you can get multiple sparks. That's good news. The new uniques, if you had old uniques, the powers are going to update at the bottom, but the stats won't. So that means you need to farm new uniques. I just ruined my document. Uniques will continue to be iterated on, and they talked about tempering with uniques. Are they thinking about that? They just said they'll look at it in the future. There will be a pre-download for the patch. That was a huge problem in Season 4, so you will have that. Tempering, they're looking for improvements. Like, for example, they say some of the recipes have too many choices. They want to have like 3 max. But they're not planning a pure overhaul. It's only costs 1 compass per group. Rare and Magic Future, we already talked about this. They didn't say anything. And they kind of said that they might update the skill tree in the future, especially with the upgrades to the certain things. I got to be honest, I wish this was a much higher priority than what they made it seem like. I think this is one of the areas that Diablo is the weakest in, kind of like with the build creation. I think Last Epoch and PoE crushed Diablo 4. I understand why it's simple, because there's many different mechanics that they're trying to implement, and they want this to be simple to get people into the game, so the barrier of entry is very low. But I also think there is a situation where your skill tree is so basic that it actually hurts the design of the game, which is where I think the skill tree sits right now. So I hope in the future, again, I hope it doesn't take 1 to 2 years to update this. I think the skill tree should be a much higher priority than what I was hearing. I would like to see some significant improvements to this. I would like to see more choices, more impactful choices. So picking your skill tree is a lot more of a journey than it currently is. It's pretty much a formality right now. If you're going to play Shred Druid, have 10 random people make a tree for Shred Druid, and the differences between them will be almost 0. That's not the way it should be. But with that out of the way, this Campfire had way more in it than I thought. I thought we were going to get some basic updates to the Infernal Hordes, and they were going to call it good. There were a lot of things in here that I just straight up didn't know, and the effort from the teams seems much higher than on the previous patches to me. And I think this is really good for the game. I genuinely wonder if Path of Exile and Last Epoch's efforts are making Blizzard step up. So I guess when competition is high, I guess the consumers win, is the economic policy there. So I'm very, very excited about this.